Hi, I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Poultry Health Today, and with me is Dr. Greg Mathis of Southern Poultry Research in Athens, Georgia. Great to see you, Greg.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to be back again talking on subjects that I'm most interested in is coccidia and Clostridium and the antibiotic-free movement.
Well, you are known worldwide for your expertise in coccidiosis. It's a topic that we cover with you every year. It's an old disease, it's a worldwide disease, but it seems like there's always something new. So let's talk about the Bioshuttle programs. When and where are they a good idea? Is it something that you want to consider using year-round, or are they seasonal programs?
Well, I believe the Bioshuttle itself is, originally we thought it was a good thing because people weren't uncomfortable with vaccination, and really people thought it was sort of a transition from understanding, having application problems and vaccine cycling, that we could modulate the vaccine coccicycling with it. And so it was going to be just a transient time until they could just go straight on vaccines. But I think now they understand that, by putting in at least, again, we have an option of 3 options that you mentioned. We have the ionophores, which has a little antibiotic effect. We have chemicals, which have to keep them down because you don't want to, timing is important. And then there's the alternative products, and those are interesting in themselves, in that how they're can affect cycling of coccidia, or do they work against the bacteria, or they work in conjunction. So it's a brave new world that we have to learn to.
If you're using a vaccine and then following with an ionophore or a non-ionophore anticoccidial, what's the ideal time to come in with the medication?
Well, the ideal time would probably be 14 to 16 days. But of course that dictates on when they're going from their feed 1 to their feed 2 program. And many times it's much earlier, because I know that there's some going in at 10. So if you put it 10 days and you put any of those products in at that time, you really have not allowed enough vaccine coccicycling from your vaccination to get enough immunity. And of course, most of those coccidia are very, very sensitive, even to low-level ionophores or low-level chemical anticoccidials. So it really is important to get at least 1.5 or 2 cycles would be ideal. And then but again, we gave presentations on this where you're looking at problems of Clostridium. Some people have them earlier, some of them have them later, and it's not as predictable as you think. So again, they're shuttling into control programs around their traditional Clostridium issues.
Back in the days when the industry was, for the most part, only using medications, they would have very well-planned rotation programs and shuttle programs. When we're looking at these Bioshuttle programs, do you have to take the same approach? Do you have to use a different anticoccidial in every flock every time you Bioshuttle?
I get that a lot about, will resistance develop in a Bioshuttle to such things as the zoalines or the amproliums or the robinidines or whatever they're using. And I don't believe that it is, because again, you're introducing the vaccine, which is the predominant coccidia in that operation, and every time you vaccine, you're reintroducing it, so resistance can't develop there. You have your base population, which will be there, but we knew from doing back when Clinicox was first introduced, that if you're using it in a grower program, it's much less chance of developing than it was when we put it in a starter and a grower. So even in that kind of program, it's a short duration. The control is not quite as strong, and its selection pressure is not as great. So things like zoaline, which are not going to kill off 100% of the coccidia in the first place, it's sort of like an ionophore-ish type behavior. That selection pressure is very low for resistance development. So it's a good thing. I don't believe resistance is going to be your issue of rotating.
Now, I saw a report the other day that zoaline is now the #1 feed medication being used in the U.S. poultry industry, which is amazing because it was just reintroduced a couple of years ago after being off the market for a long time. Does that surprise you?
It does surprise me. You know, if 2 years ago I would have said no, it would not possible, because we look at battery tests where we test anticoccidial sensitivity, and it showed that it's not really a very powerful anticoccidial drug. But on that hand, it was turned out to be a blessing, because again, two things: the selection pressure is not that great for resistance. Secondly, it can allow immunity to development, and particularly in combination with vaccines. And it just is a different mode of action than any other things that we have. So it really opened up a lot of opportunities. And we got to remember that we only have 7 chemicals that were available in the United States, and all of them are 60, maybe 60 years old now. And so we have to keep, bringing in something fresh. That time 2 years ago was, it was really interesting.
So you're saying that in a sense then, because it's not a powerful anticoccidial, does it create some leakage, which then in turn boosts immunity, or how does that work?
Yeah, it boosts immunity in much the same way as the ionophores. We know that they're not 100% control, and that was part of the reason why resistance didn't develop to them, and how wonderful they are. And so at 125 parts per million of zoline, it's a good drug, good anticoccidial activity, probably better than any of the, thinking of alternative products. It is really actually has anticoccidial activity, but it is enough to allow some immunity just by allowing some cycling. So it doesn't kill it all off.
And that's a good thing.
And that's a very good thing.
Okay, interesting. Now, I know you've been doing a lot of work with the alternative products. Which ones are catching your eye?
Well, the saponins, there's the Kai from triterpenoid in the yucca extracts have made a lot of inroads into being used continuously, as a discussion. Do you put it in the beginning, you put it in the end, or it's continuous? And I think we've mostly seen that it's a continuous kind of.
Are they being used in addition to the vaccine and other medications?
Well, no one in the United States, I think, would use any of these alternatives as a standalone. But here, I think, in conjunction with a vaccine, or even in conjunction with an ionophore, again, I discussed that, they're not 100% sensitive anymore. And so a little bit of boost helps a lot there. The essential oils are interesting. They have an antibacterial and antiprotozoal activity. Acidifiers, butyric acid is, and those organic acids. Butyric acid, for example, was originally believed that it was could only be needed at the beginning because it improves villi growth and strength. But then we discovered, well, that's maybe true, but you're getting continuous hit by the coccidium, the clostridium, and everything else, so you need villi growth, which is really, some of those acidifiers really benefit that.
We've been talking to Dr. Greg Mathis of Southern Poultry Research in Athens, Georgia. Greg, thanks again for coming by.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here and talking about coccidia and clostridium control.
Thank you.